That, as I said, we're in very secure and safe and expert hands this evening with Sarah. So, as you see, the title of this webcast is the Diagnostic Assessment, about maths and looking at the DANS programme as well. I've got notes with me here because I want to get it right for Sarah. She's such an eminent expert that I've got prepared words, Sarah. So do stop me and shout out if I miss anything. But Sarah started her professional life as a primary school teacher. She then gained RSA diploma in special needs from the Hornsby Dyslexia Centre in 1997. She's worked as a tutor and a lecturer. I've heard her many times speak at conferences and so on over the years as a keynote. She wrote and presented the BDA's first accredited maths training course in 2009. And I think that's where we first met, I think, when we both were connected to the British Dyslexia Association, Sarah. But then from there, you founded Unicorn Maths, of course you did, and there's the Unicorns logo. And obviously you're currently still very active at the Unicorn Maths. You are the author of the Diagnostic Assessment of Numeracy Skills, the DANS for short. And what's hot off the press at the moment is that the DANS Solution 1 and 2 is now available. I don't know if maybe you're going to talk about that this evening, Sarah, and that you and the team will be running the Advanced Dyscalculia course once more in June if people are interested. Hopefully I've caught most of that in a nutshell. You're not looking angry, so I hope it sounds like I've got it all there, Sarah. But you're fantastically eminent, and that's why it's fantastic to have you with us delivering this session this evening. So I'm going to go quiet. I'll hand over to you, Sarah, and then we will take some questions at the end. So Sarah, over to you.
Well, thank you, Donna. There's nothing more I can say, I think, apart from beginning. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. I plan to talk for about 45 minutes, so then there'll be plenty of time at the end for questions that Donna will put through to us. So, diagnostic assessment. The new SEND Green Paper proposes that, quite correctly in my view, that we need to provide targeted support. I completely agree. But the question is then, how do we provide this targeted support? And this is something that I've been asked many, many times for quite a long time. And this is a pretty classic question that Asenko's put to me, that as a primary school, they run standardized maths assessments, but the results tell us what we all already know, that particular children were struggling with maths. And as the Senko, she needed to know more in order to plan this targeted, this effective maths intervention. We all need to know where the gaps are in a student's mathematical knowledge, what they're struggling with, what strategies they already have, how effective are these strategies, and where their knowledge is strong so we can build up on that knowledge. If we look at a standardized written question, for instance, 27 plus 8, if the answer is left blank, is this because the student didn't understand the question? Was it because they can't add two numbers? Or were they frightened to write an answer in case it was incorrect? They wrote 32. Again, was it because they didn't understand the question? Could they not accurately add the two numbers? Or do they find it difficult to distinguish between writing a 2 and a 5, and actually they meant 35, but I read it as 32. Either way, all I get is a right-wrong answer. But if I'm going to help this student, I need to know why their answer wasn't correct. I need to be able to drill down to see which underlying concepts that are needed to answer this question are available to the student and which concepts are missing. So if we look at an example of diagnostic assessment, finger numbers. Research has shown that the quality of a 6-year-old's finger representation is a better predictor of future performance on maths tests than their scores on tests of cognitive processing. Professor Butterworth had said that if students aren't learning about numbers through their fingers, then they will never have a normal representation of numbers in their brain. Finger numbers are where children first begin to learn about one-to-one correspondence, about the sequence of numbers in a concrete mode, as we touch each of their fingers and count 1, 2, 3. This is where it all begins. In a qualitative assessment, I can ask, can you show me 8 fingers? Because an ability to automatically hold up 8 fingers is something we felt for a long time points out students who have difficulties with maths. So depending on the age of the child, do they start from 1 and count on through to 5 and then on 6, 7, 8 using their second hand, perhaps touching their fingers to their face, even though when you ask them, they can tell you they've got 5 fingers on one hand? Or can they say 5, 6, 7, 8? Finger numbers are important for future flexible numerical connections. Numbers are all about sequences and relationships, and finger numbers form the basis of a concrete representation of these numerical relationships. But in a diagnostic assessment, we can also extend our questions to reveal the depth and the flexibility of the student's knowledge. I can say to them, can you show me 12 fingers? And what's their reaction? Do they look bemused, show tension, and say they can't do it? This shows me they have a limited understanding of how numbers really work. They lack enough understanding to be able to adapt their knowledge. Do they smile and say, can't do it? At least they're not upset. They're showing a positive mindset. Do they show you 10 fingers and then 2 more? This shows an understanding of numbers and place value, perhaps a learnt response, which is a good thing. Do they laugh, ask to borrow 2 of yours? Say, can they take off their socks and shoes and use their toes? Say they'll need 2 magic fingers. This will show me they have a real understanding, adaptability, confidence in their humour. And this is all essential information that I can gather from a qualitative assessment that I would never get from a standardised written test. Finger numbers are also the starting point for the learning of the mathematical sight facts, the commutative principle of addition and decomposition, all of which probably explains why students who cannot manipulate their finger numbers find maths difficult. So, what are the advantages of diagnostic assessment? By my questioning, I can find out the depths of the student's knowledge. Do they have the vocabulary necessary to understand the concept? Do they understand the concept well enough to explain it in their own words? Recently, there's been a push towards what's called mathematical oracy, the ability to communicate verbally, structure your thoughts so they make sense to other people. Well, I have to say, in special needs, we've been discussing this for a long time. Think of the work of Mahesh Sharma, his levels of maths knowledge, where the highest level is being able to explain the concept to someone else. He said that if we cannot explain clearly and succinctly then the concept isn't fully understood. How often do your students say, oh, I know, but I can't explain it? So they don't fully understand, or they lack the necessary vocabulary to explain it. So I have to say, here again, I'm delighted that the mainstream maths is catching up with us in SPLD. And a diagnostic assessment will show if they can choose the appropriate concrete resource to resolve a problem. I can say to them, can you get 34 for me using any of the resources on the table? Do they understand my question? Do they recognize the resources? How confident are they in choosing a resource? Do they have the necessary fine motor skills to pick up the resource? Do they automatically choose or make tens? Do they build the number I've asked with ease? And by their spoken answers and the manipulation of the concrete resources, I can understand the reasons for their responses. And by looking for signs of tension, relaxation, I can add to my knowledge of their profile. Anxiety will affect performance in all of us. Any testing situation will raise our anxiety levels. And for neurodiverse students, they will find written, timed tests to be especially stressful. And stress will prevent them from showing what they're really capable of. And a student might well feel safer not to answer a question, safer not to answer a question than to risk answering it incorrectly. By definition, any student who comes to me to be assessed is having difficulty with maths. That's why they come. They find maths hard. They probably feel they're not very good at it. And it's most unusual to like something that you struggle with. And the anxiety that all this creates will magnify any dyslexic problems, will cause higher level thinking skills to shut down and prevent the student from remembering anything that they've been taught. So what I'm saying is an assessment that shows real knowledge, their true knowledge and ability, will decrease anxiety levels. It won't rely on written, timed questions, speed of processing. And it will map areas of maths knowledge that are secure and insecure. I accept that in the end, to succeed, students need to be able to present their learning, to show their skills in formal written tests. But before then, we have to enable them to have the confidence, security in their maths knowledge to be able to do this. And I'm saying a qualitative assessment that involves discussion, concrete resources, interactive games that will lower anxiety levels and give us a much more accurate picture of the students' maths abilities, as well as starting to rebuild their confidence and enjoyment in maths. So an example of this would be playing snakes and ladders with two 12-sided dice and a multiply divide dice. It's a game, it's competitive, both of which will relax the student and encourage them to interact with me. And from this activity, I can judge which multiplication tables are secure. Do they understand the difference between the two operations? Very easily seen if they groan when they throw the divide dice. Are they more comfortable multiplying than dividing? Look for shoulders slumping, hesitation, avoidance strategies? Do they understand how to divide if there's a remainder? So in this test, we would ignore the remainder. So if we throw 7 divided by 3, the answer would be 2, and we'd ignore the remainder of 1. How good's their mental addition? We ask them to add on their scores mentally rather than counting in ones round the board. What strategies do they use for mental addition, and how efficient are these strategies? So I can examine all these areas in a single, fun, interactive game, the whole time listening to my student and noting their vocabulary and their reasoning. Generally, we're told about a third of any year group will struggle with maths, and the teachers know who they are. So the question is then, why are our bright, eloquent students not keeping up with their peers in maths lessons? Well, generally, the answer is that they've failed to fully grasp the basic maths concepts that the higher maths is built upon. Maths is cumulative by character. I can teach Victorian history to a class that knows nothing about the ancient Greeks or the Romans. But I can't teach fractions unless they can divide. I can't teach decimals unless they understand place value. So to plan their lessons, I need to know exactly what gaps there are in their understanding. I also need to know which areas of my students' maths knowledge is secure, because my teaching will start by building up on these secure base blocks. I need a structured set of qualitative tests that enable me to map my students' knowledge in detail, not just a set of scores. And this is what the DANS gives us. An assessment that maps out their knowledge so I can plan focused support lessons. And this is the DANS assessment map at Key Stage 1. And we color code it. Green is secure, yellow is working towards, and red lacks knowledge of understanding. So at the end of your assessment, you'll be able to see clearly the concepts that are secure that you can then build upon to reinforce the concepts where their knowledge is still growing, and then on to tackle the areas that lack understanding. So again, we color code it green, yellow, and red. And we're going to come back and look at this in more detail a bit later on. So for focused support plans, I'm saying we need to start with a diagnostic assessment that lets us build the individual maths development plan, the maths IEP for this student, with specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound targets, SMART targets. And from this, their focused support lessons will flow. Students are referred to us at Unicorn Maths because they're failing. They know they find the subject hard, most probably don't enjoy it, and yet here they are being offered more maths. So from their first time with us, we need to show them that 1, they can do it, and 2, it's enjoyable, because it's only when this is established that they'll be in a position where they can learn. If we sat them down with more written, formal tests, even apart from the fact that it wouldn't show us what we really need to know, we would not be starting them on the journey to maths competence and enjoyment. So we wrote the downs. I'm sure you all have activities that you use when you first meet students with dice, etc. We all had that. But working together, we needed a more structured set of tests that allow us to clearly map our students' knowledge. And the other great advantage of the map is that in school, when I'm asked to look at a student who's probably always been on the teacher's radar but is now struggling, following the assessment, I can go through the colour-coded map with the teacher, showing them where the student's knowledge is secure, but also where it's still wobbly. So we can then discuss together the specific areas that need to be reinforced to enable them to access the concepts the class are being taught. So, we all teach in different classrooms, some of us in different schools. So with the DANs, everything is in the bag, ready to go. At Key Stage 1, numerosity is the roots of the number tree. It's the foundations which allow higher level mathematical concepts to grow. Without an understanding of numerosity, we're teaching abstract concepts which will not be fully understood by small children, and so not be retained or be able to be applied and manipulated. So maths at this stage will involve developing the student's understanding of number, counting, subitizing, sequencing, number patterns, place value, partitioning, and number bonds. They're numerosity. But these concepts are all interrelated and support each other. And so all the different individual areas must be strong. Research by Professor Brown Butterworth has shown the importance of the automatic recognition of number patterns, the patterns on the dice. And pupils who are weak at dot enumeration, subitizing, in reception class have been found to be in the slow maths group their entire way through junior school. Like finger numbers, the dice patterns are a visual representation of our number system. They show the relationships between our numbers. However, lifestyles changes have meant that fewer children grow up playing with dice games at home, so they may well not be able to have an automatic recognition of their patterns. Numbers, as I've said, are all about sequences and relationships, and dot patterns teach us about these relationships. They're not static, but rather they interact to develop a real understanding of numerical values and how they relate to each other. In the DANs, we assess number pattern recognition to 6 as again using number dominoes. So we're encouraging the student to relax, enjoy their lesson, interact with their learning, and show their full potential. And for me, I can examine whether or not they have an automatic recognition of their number patterns, their knowledge of language, such as double, their ability to think strategically when they play a blank. Are their fine motor skills developed enough to allow them to line up the tiles with ease? And their mindset. Are they prepared to lose and try again? All in a game setting, so alleviating stress. Many of my students enjoy the mechanical side of numeracy. They might know how to add and subtract and therefore really enjoy repeated questions that allow them to demonstrate this skill. Their difficulties arise, however, when they have to be flexible in their working and their application of the operations. So we assess this through Dynaschool, which is played like top trumps. So the dino on the left, his score is, oh, this really difficult word, double three. Do they know double three? Do they recognize it from their number patterns, from the Numicon? Can they work it out with their fingers? Can they explain to me what double means? The guy on the right, again, difficult. They're used to questions that say 5 plus 5 equals. I've turned it around. Can they work this out easily? 10 is exactly the same as 5 and 5. So the dino on the left score is 6. The dino on the right score is 5. The one on the left wins. He takes the cards. All in an interactive game. So the DANS comes with a manual, which explains all the tests and gives pointers of specific areas to look out for. There's an easel that stands on the desk to take the teacher through the tests, but it's also there if the student wants to be involved, if that's appropriate, if it gives them confidence. They can see what they'll be asked to do next, if this puts them at their ease. The recording sheets are on the USB and are completed during the lesson. They can be filled in either on a laptop, an iPad, or printed off in hard copy, and you'll never have to come back and ask for more sheets. For Key Stage 2, again, all the activities and the resources are in the bag. The DANS covers numeracy curriculum for Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. So it's a structured set of qualitative tests that enable me to complete the assessment map, clearly showing which concepts are secure and which lack knowledge and understanding. And if we look at just one area, multiplication tables, the numbers under the word multiplication tables, 3, 6, 11, 12, 13, refer to the individual tests that enable us to assess the student's ability with multiplication tables. Test 3 is snakes and ladders. Test 6 is which operation. In a written assessment, if a student provides an incorrect answer or no answer to a prose question, I can't tell why. And again, it's this why that's so important for me to understand in order to help them. Is it because they lack the necessary comprehension and reading skills? Do they not understand the problem? So by playing this game, I can analyze whether they can read the question clearly, interpret the problem, retell it to me in their own words. Can they decide which operation could be applied to answer the problem? And if they have the flexibility of understanding to see that some problems could be answered by multiplying or also by repeated addition, all in a game mode. And the juggler in the pack is that they do not have to give me a numerical answer. Of course, if it's appropriate, you can ask for a numerical answer. But you could say, read the question. Okay, what did it say? What was it talking about? Can you tell me what they want to know? How are you going to get that? Which maths operation are you going to have to apply? And they have to choose the operation. And to play the game, you each have this card, and each time you choose an operation, you cover that, and the winner is the first one to find one of each operation. So I'm really trying to see if they can analyze these prose questions. We play multiplication football, followed by asking them to complete a multiplication square. We ask them to complete a multiplication sum on a whiteboard, noting their methods. What do they do? Horizontal, grid, column? How confident are they? And if they are confident, then we can ask them to extend it to a 3-digit by 2-digit multiplication sum. Test 12 is division. Can they explain to me what is division? Can you demonstrate? Show me using the resources. Can they complete a division worksheets at Key Stage 2? We do have worksheets. So we can examine if a student, if there's a disparity in what they can produce verbally to what they can produce on a worksheet. Can they read the questions fluently? Can they retell them? Can they write the problem as a number sentence, and can they solve it with ease? And can they complete a division sum? We also have a game that involves remainders with a division. Test 13 is about fractions. Are they confident applying division to calculate fractions? All these together, these 5 tests, enable us to assess the student's ability with multiplication tables. Again, by color coding our results, it's clear exactly what tables are secure, which we can then use as bases to help develop the others, the 3s, 4s, 6s, and 11s, following which we'll tackle the harder tables, but always working on the commutative principle. So if they know 8 lots of 3, they'll also know 3 lots of 8. Fractions are the concept that upset my students the most. By the time they're referred to me, they've often been taught fractions 3 or 4 times, and they still don't understand, and the very word brings the portcullis crashing down over their eyes. So we assess through games as well as questioning and written sheets. Which is larger, half or a quarter? Why? And again, it's this why that's so important. If they can explain to me, why is a half larger than a quarter? 2 smaller than 4. So why is a half larger? And it's this why that can't be asked in a screener or in a written test. We have an activity greater than, equal to, or less than a half. The less than, equal, greater than cards are put at the top of a column, and the student then turns a card from the pack and reads the fraction aloud. Can they pronounce it with ease? 25 hundredths. Which column should it go in? Why? Why do you want to put it there? Tell me why. And again, it's this ability to ask why and listen to their explanation that tells me whether they have a real understanding of fractions. And then, can they extend this knowledge to work out 3/7, 4/6, demanding a flexible understanding? As I say, by this stage, we also have worksheets. They're all on the USB, so they can be printed off for each individual student. And it's this ability to assess if there's a disparity between their spoken knowledge and what they can produce on paper. If the students fail to answer standardized written questions on decimals, then the verbal questions from the qualitative assessment will allow me to explore and find the root of the problem. What's the value of 6 in 3.6? The answer, if they write 0.6, shows the student can read and partition the number. Can they provide me the answer as a fraction as well? can they tell me what is the role of the decimal point? If they can tell me clearly with confidence that it marks where the whole numbers end, it's a division between whole numbers and fractional numbers. Because if they can't, this would be the important first lesson that we give them on decimals. Following on from this, why does the number 5 not have a decimal point? If it did, if we wanted to show the decimal point, where would we put it? Can they calculate 24 plus 3.7? Do they do it mentally? Do they write it on the whiteboard? If they write it on the whiteboard, can they line the digits up correctly? Can they put the decimal point after the 4 in the 24 and then add a 0 so they can line everything up in columns? All this we need to find out if we're going to help them with decimals. At the start of the session, I asked why these bright, eloquent students were having such difficulties with their maths, and we looked at the cumulative nature of maths learning. However, if the student has an SPLD, there may be other reasons to explain their lack of progress. So in the DANS, we also look at underlying skills. And this will then enable me to support the development of an underlying weakness in their lessons and ensure I'm teaching them in a way they can access. As we said, it's difficult to determine from an incorrect answer to a written problem whether the student didn't understand the question because they lacked the necessary comprehension or reading skills, or they didn't know which operation to correctly apply. Recent research by GL Assessment shown that 1/4 of all 15-year-olds have a reading age of 12 or below, and that reading ability affected GCSE maths results by a larger amount than it affected GCSE English literature. Interesting. Being dyspraxic does not make one dyscalculic, but the majority of dyscalculics are dyspraxic. And this is worth analysing, as a great deal of help can be provided by occupational therapists that will make a real difference. And Madeline Portwood very kindly let her motor skills screening test be reproduced for use in the DANS. We've not included a test for working memory, as this would need to be standardised, but most of us have a scored digit span test we can use. We look at visual spatial skills because spatial reasoning skills in children can predict later maths ability. And again, this is relevant in assessment, as we know that spatial reasoning is a malleable skill that can be developed. Children with developmental dyscalculia can have non-numerical ordering difficulties. And Dr. Kingham-Usani, who's done this research, says young children's non-numerical ordering ability at the start of formal education longitudinally predicts their symbolic number skills and academic achievement in maths. Again, it's relevant as it's a skill that can be improved. And in the DANS, we assess this through a set of pancake making cards, which we ask them to sequence. So, I am saying that targeted support will begin with diagnostic assessment. By colour coding their results, at the end of the assessment, you'll be able to see clearly the concepts that are secure because this is what you will build upon to reinforce the concepts where the knowledge is wobbly, and then to move on to tackle the areas that are lacking understanding. Because the DANS tests are diagnostic rather than standardized, they can be revisited, and then they can be marked up to show progress, where the yellow concepts are turning green and the red concepts are turning yellow. So in conclusion, targeted support necessitates a clear map of the student's mathematical knowledge. And for this, we need structured diagnostic assessment that's enjoyable for our students. And the DANS provides a structured set of qualitative tests, all bagged up and ready to go. As Donna kindly said, DANS Solutions 1 is out there, and it's a teaching package full of games and ideas to help our students develop an understanding of number whilst enjoying their maths. It helps nurture their confidence, essential for learning, obviously, with the concrete resources that they should use. And they have fun with the games. DANS 2 is a teaching package to help your students develop an understanding of fractions, decimals, time, angles, and algebra, all beginning in that concrete mode. So if you'd like further information, please see the website or feel free to email me. And as Donna said, the next course is running after half term. More details on the website. Over to you, Donna. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing. There was a lot there. So I'd like to start off really just by asking you a question about where the inspiration for the DANS came from. And whilst you're sharing your thoughts on that, if the rest of our delegates have any questions, please do pop it in the chat, put your hand up, and we'll get through as many as we can. But Sarah, where did the DANS come from in terms of ideas and development?
Well, really from necessity. You know, we needed, as teachers, we never have enough time with our students. You know, we never have enough time in lessons. We never have enough lessons. So, you know, I felt it's no good whiffling around in the lesson, not knowing what we should be doing. We should be completely targeted and focused on what we needed to do. So that's where the DANS grew from. And we all have our own ideas with dice and everything that we've used. But because I was working in a group, I needed something that was more structured. So, you know, we could all use the same thing. So we wrote the DANS, and I started delivering it on the courses that we run. And, you know, people kindly said, well, look, you know, this is ridiculous. You know, you need to publish this so everybody can use it, because there is nothing else out there at the moment on diagnostic assessment in the same way. But my problem was I didn't want a book. I wanted activities. I wanted everything that I believe in, you know, that maths should be fun, it should be concrete. And so I had a lot of problems, but then somebody kindly introduced me to Colin Redman at SEN Books, and he got my vision. He understood what I wanted to do. And he was actually very brave, because he, you know, he took a gamble on the DANS, because he obviously had to buy in all the concrete resources, all the Numicon and everything. And he's been brilliant to work with, and I'm absolutely thrilled with the quality of the things that he's produced for us, the cards and everything else. So in the end, I turned out to be very lucky.
And it's such a great resource. The times I've heard you speak about it at a conference, you get mobbed at the end, Sarah, with everybody wanting to have a look at it. I've seen you quite a few times in a corner with the bag, showing everything, because it's really exciting. And Ellie's asking, can we use DANS to diagnose dyscalculia? How far does dance take us on that
Well,
journey, Sarah?
the answer is no, because you can't diagnose dyscalculia without standardized scores. So the straight answer is no, but basically, if you look at the SAS website and everything, what they are saying is that the standardized and the diagnostic together make the testing protocol that will enable you to diagnose dyscalculia. So standing alone, no, it won't. And it was never written for that. But so you're assessing, obviously it's very important to be able to assess for dyscalculia, but if you want that assessment to be used by the class teachers or anybody else, you need the diagnostic side as well. So the standardized and the diagnostic together should form the testing protocol.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. And Ellie says thank you. Do come back with any follow-up questions there, Ellie. It's an interesting idea. And Alex is saying, do you do any training courses, Sarah, specifically for the DANS assessment, or is that unnecessary? And she says that it looks great.
Oh, well, thank you. I think it is unnecessary because everything should be there. But, on the 2-day course that we do, on day 2, we look at current research into dyscalculia, understanding how it can be assessed, how you can write the individual maths development plans. So, if you're interested in using it within the whole family of dyscalculia and how everything fits together, I would say come on the course.
Yeah. And this is a follow-up, I guess, from what Alex has just asked from Jill. Is therefore, Sarah, I know you said it's a good idea, but not necessarily essential that folks do the course. But so Jill's asking, can anyone use the DANS? How much underlying knowledge do we need to be able to utilise the DANS programme?
Anybody can use the DANS. The manual, the instructions, and everything are there. It's not standardized, it's diagnostic. The more informed you are as a teacher, the more knowledge you have and the more experience you have, the better you will be at assessing using the DANS or using any assessment. But it's absolutely there with, as I say, everything is in the manual to show you how to use it.
Brilliant, thank you. And a broader question, Sarah, is about maths anxiety. There's a lot written these days about maths anxiety.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that, to it being a barrier to being able to learn effectively? And, even would that get in the way of using DANS to ascertain a child's true mathematical level, I guess is the word.
Is anxiety a barrier to learning? Absolutely, particularly with maths. The problem with maths is that people see that there is a right and a wrong answer. I mean, if you're writing a comprehension, an essay, there's no right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. But the problem with maths is people can see that there might be a right or wrong answer. And this causes a lot of anxiety, particularly for neurodiverse students, things like learning their times tables, which they can find extremely hard. If they're expected at school to achieve a certain level before they can move on. I mean, the worst thing of all is if, it still goes on and it horrifies me, is that, teachers think it's fun, it's a game for children to all stand on their chairs and they're thrown a question, and if they get it right, they have to sit down. I mean, it would terrify me. Suddenly, if somebody asked you suddenly, if I said to you, okay, Donna, what are 7 sevens? I mean, I'm sure you know the answer, but you just go blank.
Yeah.
So anxiety is a real problem. And that's, I think why I said early on that until a student feels that they can do it and they're enjoying it, they're actually not in a position where they can learn. Anxiety will prevent them learning, which is why I think teaching should be fun. I want to enjoy it. That's why the DANS grew up as it did, because all our lessons are with concrete resources, with activities, with games, because that's how children learn. I've forgotten the second half of the question. Oh, was it? Is
No,
anxiety
it was
a
just whether
barrier to
it,
the
and
dance?
I guess as well on the back of that, Sarah, I mean, it's really interesting to hear you share these thoughts because is this partly as well coming back to the dance? It is very games based to take that anxiety level out, and it's you're almost playing, but with a structure behind it, I guess.
It is totally that. I mean, that's why it was built like that, because I feel that anxiety prevents children showing what they can really do. And if we're assessing a child, we need to know what they really can do, not, what they can present. And these are two different things. Often, you'll have a new pupil and they'll come in and, you'll think, ugh, this poor child finds it so hard. And yet once that you know them, they know much more than they think they know. And this the whole time is what I find. So what I'm saying is assess through activities and games that are structured. So you'll gain an understanding of their knowledge. You'll find they know far more than they think they do. And so you're not then going to waste their lessons teaching them stuff that actually they really know. You're going to use what they know as the basis to build up their knowledge.
Thanks, Sarah. It's really interesting to hear you share your wisdom in that way. We've got a few practical questions now. One is from Alison. Good evening, Alison. She says, how much does it cost?
I looked that up today, Alison. I looked it up. Here we are. It's £180. I looked it up today. And it's
Brilliant.
from SEN Books. SEN Books.
Yeah.
Crossbone
And
people
one
got
of
it
our
as well.
listeners has popped the link into the chat, which is fantastic. Thanks, Caroline.
Thank you.
And we've got another question from Ellie. Would dance be suitable for secondary students?
The answer is it is not standardized, so it can be used at whatever level you think is right. If they are secondary and really struggling, then yes. But I mean, DANS is written for, there are two separate assessments. One is Key Stage 1 and one is Key Stage 2. But with students who are struggling further on, absolutely, absolutely. And it's written, and the games and the activities and everything are fun, and they're to do with football and various other things. So an older student would be able to access it happily as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. I'm just seeing if we've got any other questions. But Sarah, you started the session talking about the latest developments within SEND. What are your thoughts then about the impact that this will have on diagnosing dyscalculia and maths difficulties in general? A step in the right direction?
Yes, I think just before we finish, but I've got something I want to show, which is the latest thing I found.
Oh,
I've
yes,
been playing
please
with.
do.
Okay,
Yes.
but let's answer that.
Do.
The answer is yes, this idea that our lessons have to be targeted. That's what I'm all about. I totally agree with that. As well as, this I was talking about that, it's just coming out now, this mathematical oracy that we have to listen to our students. Well, of course we have to listen to our students. That's, again, what I've been saying the whole time. So I think in the same way that, phonics came from SEN teaching, phonics came from dyslexia. We were talking about phonics years, but I mean, I'm going back 20 years, but years before it came mainstream. And phonics is now completely mainstream. I think that a lot of what we're doing in maths, in SEND maths, such as listening to our students, asking them to explain it, that's now going mainstream too, which is great. There might be other questions. Let me just show you. I don't know if people will be able to see this.
Yes, please do.
Can you see it, Donna?
Yes.
This is a
Explain
poppet.
it to us.
It's a poppet. And this I found, I must give credit where credit's due, at the Dyscalculia Network at the show. So it's a poppet, and I was playing it this afternoon with a year 3. And so I was playing it with, so you've got rows of 10. So I was using it with 2 dice, so mental arithmetic and bridging 10. So that if he'd put down 6 and then he threw 7, say, he knew, oh, sorry, that's 6. He knew he had 4 there and he had 3 on the next one. Oh my gosh, did I have a happy little boy. Poppets for maths. Just
Fantastic.
something I love.
And I've just put a link. That's brilliant. Thank you. And this is what these sessions are all about. It's that type of sharing. And I've just put the link again to the Dyscalculia Network.
Yeah.
Katrina and I were talking about this before the session this evening. It is a new network to showcase all these ideas around number and maths, Sarah, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Kat and Rob, who run it, are great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, all these new exciting people are coming to run these things. It's just, it is the most, I don't know, I'm very lucky. I love my job. It's the most exciting place to be.
Yeah. Katrina, did you want to share something about the network as well?
No, only that they've got a Facebook group as well, and lots of people joining that Facebook group. So if you haven't come across them before, join them. But as Donna says, it's great to share all these resources and knowledge and everything. If anyone's got anything else that they wanted to add on the chat box, anything they've come across, but certainly that Poppet looks fantastic.
Such fun. My problem is I enjoy it and I have to move on. You know, we've got meant to be having a lesson here. Yeah.
But that's what learning should be. You're right, Sarah. It should be fun.
Yes. That's the whole
and that's
point.
when we have our most powerful learning.
For children who are struggling.
Yes.
Because they've lost the fun.
Yes.
And we have to put that back in. Because it's
Yeah,
only when
agreed.
that's there, they'll be in a place where they can learn.
Thank you. Well, it has been fun working with you, as it always is. But the fun is over now because we need to stop the session. But thank you so much, Sarah. It's brilliant. We've had thank yous in the chat. You know, it's always so exciting to see you showcase the dance and listen to you talk because, yeah, you know, you're such a knowledgeable person. And thank you for what you've done by sharing dance with us and continuing to do so and develop it as a tool. Really, it is brilliant, and there is lots of people echoing what I've just said in the chat as well. So that just leads me to thank everybody who's joined us this evening. I'm so sorry if you've had tech problems. There always is something that slightly goes wrong. Happily, we do always record though, so if you've missed the beginning, we will share the recording with you ASAP, and do share it with other colleagues and interested parties as well. You've had Sarah's slides with her details on to keep in touch, and Katrina's as well. So thank you for your time. Please do tune in again. We've got lots of other things happening here at Positive Dyslexia, but we'll say good night now and hope to see you on another session. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you. Bye.